Huzzah! Hello!
Hey.
Hey, welcome to the deep dive. Welcome, Jason Charles Miller, JCM, as we call him for short. I'm Tara, founder of D&D in a Castle, and we're here to find out all about what you have in store for D&D in a Castle, Jason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jason is joining us for D&D in a Castle this summer, June 29th to July 3rd, at our location deep in the Mohican Forest, our beautiful sort of elven type summer festive setting, which is just charming and lovely and so peaceful and wonderful to be at. For the first time at this
Okay.
venue, Jason, what are you looking forward
Yeah.
to?
First time. Yeah. First of all, I want to know why someone built a castle in Ohio. Who are they protecting from themselves from? We'll see. Yeah, no, this is going to be I believe, my fourth overall D&D in a castle that I've participated in. Although technically fifth, because there was one time where I did 2 sessions in a row.
Right,
So I don't know if that
right.
counts as 2. I don't know what you know.
Yeah, we count as two. We count as two. We give you all the
I
credit.
I never left the castle, so for me, but yeah, so I've got my Lumley shirt on. So I've been 4 sessions at Lumley, and this is going to be my first one stateside, which I think is exciting because it makes it more accessible for people to have this
Yeah.
experience in the States.
Yeah, certainly for Americans to be able to do this if Europe is a bit of a bridge too far. I actually know the answer to your question about who built this castle, which was actually a war veteran who had
Cool.
fought in Europe and actually fell in love with the beauty of European castles and was, a fan of the sort of fantasy of fairy tales. And you can really feel it when you go there and you see it. It's really built and designed to evoke that kind of traditional fairy tale kind of feeling in the castle. So it's got a really magical, fantastical feeling, whereas our UK setting is more like more dwarven than elven in a way. It's got a kind of it's a genuine medieval castle, genuinely
Yeah.
saw action in the Wars of the Roses. It's like thick stone walls, like it's not joking around. It's a historic castle, whereas this is like a
Yeah.
fantasy castle. So it's kind of nice. You can get both flavors, and they feel really different.
Well, look, I think anybody that's a fan of fantasy role playing, if they had the budget, they'd build a castle. I know I would. So,
I would, I for sure would.
you know, I'm
Yeah,
glad it's there.
definitely. Yeah. So you're coming for this summer round of D&D in a Castle.
Mhm.
What have you got planned for your players?
Okay. So, I've spent the majority of, I guess, my D&D life, kind of playing in a lot of different realms, but the world that Ed Greenwood created, Forgotten Realms, is such a cool setting because there's so many possibilities and there's so many infinite things that could happen in that realm. And so I decided to do this adventure in the Forgotten Realms. But what I want to do is really explore the seas of the Forgotten
Mm.
Realms. And so I thought another time, actually, at D&D in a Castle, I did a Moonshae Isles campaign where our campaign mainly was around those islands. But I thought, hey, why not really just go all up and down the Sword Coast, but not on the coast? Let's go out into the ocean. There's so many more infinite
Mhm.
possibilities, unexplored islands, almost anything that you can put there. I'm currently researching ship to ship combat for this adventure
Love it.
because
Love it.
there's not a lot of rules about that, right? Like there are some in previous editions, but there's not a lot of ship to ship combat rules in 5th edition. So I'm going to be actually coming up with my own sort of special system that ties in with 5e for the ship to ship thing that hopefully will keep the game going and nice and fast and keep the pace going and keep everybody involved and engaged.
Very cool. I've just seen a couple of messages coming in just saying hello and howdy and hello everyone. So just a hello to everybody who's in the chat and who's watching. If you want to leave a comment or have a question either for Jason or for me about D&D in a Castle, about D&D, about Jason and his campaign and his career and all the things, just drop that in the chat and we'll try to get to all of those as well. We're talking about D&D in a Castle, which is coming this summer to the US, June 29th to July 3rd, which Jason Charles Miller is running a campaign at a seafaring campaign, which I think we're calling Faerûn Ho, which,
Faerûn Ho, yeah.
which I think
Hey,
is going
I
to
mean,
be their
hey, land
nickname.
ho, Faerûn
Yeah,
Ho.
Faerûn Ho. So off to Faerûn across the wide seas. So what kind of a so we talked a little bit about the setting, how it's going to be in the seas around the Sword Coast, etc.
Mhm.
What kind of a campaign is it going to be? Like what without spoilers, obviously, no one
Yeah.
wants spoilers, but
Um,
like
bef- oh, and by the way,
thematically.
before I get into that, so we're live on my Twitch channel as well. And I just saw someone say, and they just threw this out there to the universe, so I'm going to throw it out to you. D&D in the Smithsonian Castle could be fun. That's in Washington, D.C. I think you need to look into that.
Yeah, I
Saying.
have. I've looked at all the castles, Jason. You can trust me to have seen every castle that there is. I mean, we're always open to hearing from venues and to hearing about venues that have the kind of ability to function for D&D in a castle. Couple of the things, since you brought it up,
Okay,
a couple of
okay.
the things that make D&D in a castle so magical and that make our venues so special is they're kind of being isolated from the world. So they're always sort of deep in the countryside where there's no real signals that you aren't in a fantasy world.
Yeah, that's true. And
So
then
that's
Smithsonian's
a
right there on, yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
I got
Yeah,
you.
so there are a couple castles, and they also have to actually have on-site accommodation because staying on site, staying at the castle is kind of part of the magic. It's really gives you that retreat feeling. You never have to go back and interact with the world. You get to just sort of submerge yourself into the fantasy of the experience, and have enough spaces and be the right kind of size that they have the balance of guest rooms and the gaming spaces, because that's one of the things that's different about D&D in a castle versus a con, for example, is that everyone has their own gaming space. And
Right.
so having enough sort of breakout spaces within the castle that can be used for a game that has a private environment.
How many castles do you think you and the partners at D&D in a Castle have explored just to see if it's possible?
Yeah, we've
And
explored
can I
in
get that
person.
job sometime?
I know. Yeah, that's my job. I'm here for the castles, man. I'm here for the castle. So yeah, I've done tours in Europe and the UK, looking at castles. In Ireland, we've scouted. In North America as well, we've talked to a number of different castles on the East Coast, West Coast, Center. I mean, if you consider all the ones I've looked at online, probably hundreds. I mean, a lot.
Wow.
France. We've looked at ones in Eastern Europe. We've looked at ones in Italy. We've looked at castles everywhere, physically in person, mostly limited to France, the UK, and Ireland, and the US. But yeah, we've looked at a lot of castles, so we're really proud of the venues that we use and how fitting they are for what we do. There's a lot of great castles out there, a lot of great castle museums, even great castle hotels. But we want it to have a certain fantasy vibe. We want it to have a sort of retreat vibe, and we want it to function for D&D, because primarily D&D in a castle is really all about the D&D that you're playing
Yeah.
while you're there. So we want it to be really conducive to that. Oh, we're getting so many nice little comments. You're so popular, Jason. Everybody's stopping to say hi.
Oh, cool. Hi, everybody.
Big
Um,
fan of Jason Charles Miller, of course
I
you are.
love seeing that. Thank
Everybody's
you.
stopping by to say hello. Oh, I'm pretty new to D&D. I love it, and I'm constantly looking for tips to be a better player. Oh, that's so lovely. I'm going to let you address that too, Jason, but I just want to say I don't think there's any such thing as being a better player. I think you just have fun. That's my tip.
Yeah.
Have more fun. That's how you be a better player.
Yeah, I
What do
think
you
if
think?
you're having fun, then that's really that's the key to it all. But back to answer your original question, because I'm not avoiding the question at all.
Oh, right.
You know, for for D&D in a Castle, it's about 24 hours of playing time, roughly, here or there,
Yeah.
right? So it's about 8 hours a day of playing time, sometimes more. Depend, those combats can go really
Right.
fun. I love a balanced game of like role playing and problem solving, and combat, of course, is fun. And I'm going to say something that's going to kind of, hopefully it won't blow your mind too much, Tara. And that is, I don't really get bogged down too much by rules. And what I mean by that is if the story is, everyone's having a good time and the story is moving moving us along the way everyone wants it to go. I'm not going to be bogged down so much on, you know, the area of effect on this spell or that spell. Sometimes magic can do its own thing, you know what I mean? And there can be and anything can happen with magic, I guess is what I'm saying. And um the different rule sets from first edition to fifth edition. Of course, we're going to play fifth edition, but there are really cool elements that of all sorts of things that happen from editions 1 through 5, and me playing it my entire life. For example, in edition 1, there's a wandering monder tape, wandering monder, wandering monster table. I think I'm going to name a monster wandering
Monstering
monder.
Monder. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that
you
sounds
should.
like a good new homebrew. But there is a wandering monster table, and that is if you roll a regular 6-sided die, if a 1 pops up, there's a monster. Okay, for DMs only. And I usually like to, and I think that's I can't remember the exact, what would that percentage be? I don't know, 12 point something or something. But I use that, and I've always used that, because what's happening behind my screen, they're never going to know.
Yeah. 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 No.
um, but what look, I like to give my players as much agency as possible. If we get started on the campaign and they want to jump off the ship and go to Waterdeep for 3 days, I'm not stopping them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to set an adventure out there, but I don't like to keep things on railroads. We have because I'm so involved in streaming online,
Mhm.
sometimes as a DM, sometimes as a player. Of course, when we're making a show for the audience, there's a different expectation. But when we're sitting down at a table and we have 3 days to play a campaign, you can get a lot done in those 3 days, and you can really make a lot of lasting memories and lasting friendships, and really have a good level of immersion, that you and then being in a really awesome, castle resort where you're staying there, and you're just waking up and playing. I mean, how cool is that?
Right. How you mentioned like the difference between, streaming and the castle. And I wanted to ask you a couple questions about that. Like, as you say, you're immersed, you can get a lot done in that amount of time in only 3 days. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about what that experience is like, what the game is like at D&D in a castle, and how it might be different
Well,
from other games?
so the game, it gives you absolute freedom. The Okay. So even when you're playing in a home campaign, a campaign that you might play every week, right? That you might play in every week. Even then, we have the distractions of, okay, we can only play from like 7 to 10, and uh, somebody has Jane has a babysitter or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're going to be limited by all these things, even within, like, getting 6 to 8, sometimes 4 to 6 to 8 adults together on a Wednesday night. Even that is a miracle, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're putting on a show or not. So with D&D in a castle, you have the absolute relaxation and freedom of starting a game from scratch and just literally playing it all day with no distractions whatsoever, except for looking around and seeing the beautiful setting that you're in.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that gives you, me, for as a DM, that gives me freedom, that sort of clears my mind. I'm not worried about anything else. And I also, I think for players, it gives them the escape that we're all looking for. I mean, we play this game to escape from everyday life, which, by the way, is why I never like playing bards. People always want me to play bards in my games, and I'm like, no, 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 no. That's my job. I don't want to pretend to be another bard. I want to be a warrior. I want to be a wizard. I want to be a rogue. I
Right.
never like playing bards, but people always make me play them. But anyway, but I do incorporate into my campaigns. I do incorporate some of the things that I've learned as a bard in my life, whether it's like making voices for the characters or
Mhm.
maybe singing a little song that someone comes up and sings a song to the player. So that's kind of fun things that I like to do to add into my games that that maybe other DMs might not, or they might do something different. And so I try to at least take the sort of skills that I've had as an entertainer my entire life and
Mhm.
throw that into my DM performance, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I did. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you about is like, I've kind of observed the different types of dungeon masters. Dungeon masters come from all kinds of different backgrounds. Anybody can be a dungeon master. And the people we work with tend to be, either, big on the streaming and the performing, or big on the writing, or big on, the maybe even the content creation, or the, even we have people who've created official D&D content, that kind of thing. And you come from a performance background. Do you feel like there's a different and I feel sometimes there's a different style between the performer DM and the sort of facilitator DM. It's sort of a spectrum, and people I think have both. But where do you feel like when you are actually dungeon mastering, not performing for an external audience, but just working with your players? How is that? How do you
You
kind of
know,
approach that?
I don't know. I think that we'd have to ask my players because it's so hard for me to judge myself. I put a ton of pressure on myself. I'm not gonna lie. I over prepare and I make sure that every possibility that I'd like to think, and it never works out. You want to prepare for every possibility that your players are going to choose, and then they do something else, right? So it's hard for me to say what kind of DM I am, except for the fact that I've had a lifetime of not only being in the entertainment business, but being an entertainer and being a performer. So I'd like to think that I put that into my my ability as a DM, you could say.
Cool. And this campaign that you're going to be running this time around,
Mhm.
this is a nautical campaign. What are the campaigns you've run in the past at D&D and Castle, and how did they go?
They all went pretty well. I've done some classic dungeon delves. I've done one where everybody was trapped in like everyone was trapped in a town and they needed to find their way out. I've like I said, I have done one where we had some island lore, and I really enjoyed that. And so that's why I'm really expanding on this now and including more nautical ship mechanics and things like that.
Cool. I'm just seeing that I have a couple of comments coming in through the chat here. Some of them are just for fun about your wandering monster table, your wandering monster, or
Yeah.
and some questions about your prep for your games as well. How much do you work on characters' backstory or working backstory into the campaign? Is one of them, and yeah,
I don't think I could ever work enough on that. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure that there's plenty of NPCs that people encounter that have some significance to the game. And one of the ways that you can do that is you think about the motivation for the NPC and maybe the struggle that NPC is going through. And then that will make them infinitely more interesting because rather than just a uh, a tavern owner, maybe it's a tavern owner that has a terrible secret that maybe that tavern owner knows or knows who the murderer is, or is the murderer themselves, or maybe that tavern owner is days away from losing the tavern to the horrible robber baron that has the deed to it. Like put a little bit of backstory in your head on each person. It's if it's even the motivation of the monsters that you're encountering, and I think it helps the it helps the players it gives them more choices, and it also makes the choices a little bit more difficult, which I hope make the game more challenging and then more fun.
Yeah. Someone's asked you. Yeah, I think it's more about story that way. The story has more depth and more to interact with. Someone's asking if you've ever had someone play a bard and sing your songs in your game.
Not yet.
You volunteering? Mr. Abigail the Kobold.
She's one of my Twitch mods, actually.
Fun. I'd like to ask you a little bit if you could sort of share your experience about D&D in a castle and about being there. What is the first thing you would tell someone who asks, is D&D in a castle worth it?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about it is well, not only is it an experience that you will never forget, and I'm not trying to sound like an ad here, not only isn't it an experience that you'll never forget, but you'll make lifelong friends along the way. I mean, I still keep in touch with a lot of my players from my tables, and I love the people that I've met there. But besides that, it's sort of a way for, I don't know how many immersive experiences there are that tie into the hobby that we all love, and so it's a really unique and I think gratifying experience. I would love to be a player sometimes. No pressure, just play. Oh my God, please. So maybe I'll come as a player one day and just not worry about it.
Very cool. Are there any moments in your experience at D&D in a castle that felt like they were straight out of a fantasy novel or out of a fantasy story?
Walking the castle grounds at Lumley, and I understand that at Mohican there's like a similar vibe, or this not the same kind of vibe, but just like you can still do that. Walking the castle grounds, outside, inside, you kind of being there as a DM and then doing it two sessions in a row. Part of my brain was like, oh, I live here now.
Totally true.
Like the secret passages. I'm like, oh yeah, I can take this little spiral staircase right up to my room and avoid everybody if I want to. That is a wild feeling, and you get really used to it really fast.
Yeah, it's true. It's remarkable how quickly you switch into this is me now. This is my life now, and you kind of forget your whole life.
You do.
Or worse, I don't know, but you really commit. I find people really commit to the experience. I find that the players who come there, it's partly that, D&D in a castle, if you're going to do it, you're going to be a committed person, you're going to be a committed player. It's going to be what you really want. And you put, those people in a room together, you're getting that commitment off them. And it's also just kind of enforced by the setting and the environment. Like, you are here, and we do a lot of things to kind of create that for the guests, to allow them to be able to do that. A lot of the choices that we make to be able to just, as you say, escape reality, and just completely immerse themselves. And as we were saying earlier, I'm here for the castles. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about the immersive fantasy experience, and setting up that backdrop, and then letting the DMs take you into your story with that as kind of the background. I have a couple of more questions that have come in here. Some of them are just comments, but any tips on rolling dice better?
No, not at all. I mean, it's funny. It's so funny. Like, I remember someone gave me a set of dice as a gift. And then I saw her a couple weeks later, and she's like, how are those dice rolling for you? And I thought to myself, I don't even really think about it that way. You know what I mean? Like I've
Right.
got to believe, I have to believe that the dice are completely random, because if I don't believe that, then that takes away the whole chance of it all,
Yeah.
the whole fate of it all.
We used to, our motto is, at the moment, vacation beyond imagination, which is what we offer. Step into a vacation that is in a fantasy world. But it used to be also, and it still kind of is, Fantasia et Fortuna, which is fantasy and fortune, or imagination and luck. And it's exactly, the luck part, the randomness of it is like essential as the constraint to just making it up, right? So yeah, the dice have to be, they have to be unpredictable. There is someone here is asking a question, and you can perhaps talk a little bit about what this process is like. I can tell you what the process is. As someone who's almost always designed characters with the group at the table in cooperation with the DM, I'm curious about how characters get brought to these things. I feel like I'd want to avoid too much personal motivations so they'd be more open to a broad campaign hook. So what I can tell you is when you sign up for D&D in a castle, I'll tell you the facts, and then Jason, you can tell us about how you do that with your players. When you sign up to D&D in a castle, you have sort of two options. When you come as a player, you can reserve a seat with a specific dungeon master, or you can let us choose your dungeon master. If you're like, these guys all look great, I can't choose, or some people come, they're here to play with Jason Charles Miller, and that's who they're here to play with, and they want a seat at that table, otherwise they're not coming. So they have the option to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like, I just want to play a great game, it's all going to be a great game, you can let us pick too. So about 2 to 3 months before the event happens, you get invited to join a online platform with all of your players and the dungeon master. And in there you get, you'll be able to see well beforehand what the campaign is. So you can join that campaign by choice, or you'll know what the campaign is that you're joining. That's all listed online. And then any details about the campaign that might affect character creation are also posted in that online platform. So you can see, this is a seafaring campaign. Maybe you want to choose a specific character to fit that. The campaign sort of hook will be there. And then the dungeon master will be there to sort of answer any questions. And the other players will be there together. So you can figure out how you're going to balance your party, people share big long backstories. They get character art done sometimes, or, people get the character creation process is actually a really big part of it. And it happens a good while before the castle, so that you don't eat up time in the castle with character creation, which can be a time-consuming thing. So that's
Right.
kind of how we manage it. Any comments about having been through that, Jason?
Yeah, it's funny because right when we're done with this, I'm going to record my video for my table to kind of let them decide what they're going to do. But yeah, I think preparing ahead of time is good. We can have a short session 0, but I kind of give everyone, hey, we're gonna this campaign is going to start at level 5, or this campaign is going to start at level 3, or where however we're going to do it, or level 1, and we can talk in our chat group beforehand to make a nice balanced party, or a party that I think will be balanced for the specific adventure that I'm going to be running. But yeah, we do a lot of communication before we're even there at the table. So it's sort of like a session 0. I've also done session 0s on, Zoom before we get to the castle with the entire table. I did that for my last table. And that way, there's less, there's like less confusion on how it's all going to go, and just more fun.
Yeah, it is more fun, and you can really hit the ground running that way when everybody's had a chance to connect, and you show up and you feel like you know these people already, and even the very first time you see them, oh, you're this, and call each other by their character names instead of their human names, because that's sometimes how you identify, which is also part of the magic. We're at 12:30. Oh my gosh, that was so fast, Jason. There's so much else I want to ask you. We're going to have to do this again sometime so we can get into a lot more questions that I have.
Okay, no problem.
I've had such a good time. The time has just flown. Oh my gosh. There's so much to talk about. If you have any questions for us, either of us, you can always head over to the website, dndinacastle.com. There's an online chat feature there with real human beings behind it. Might even be me. Or other humans, or you can email us or find a bunch of information there. We're also on socials at D&D in a Castle. Jason, where can people find you if they want to talk to you?
Well, if you go to if you just remember my name, Jason Charles Miller, that's me, and pretty much all social media places. So, or you can go to my website and get the direct link. So find me wherever you feel like finding me, you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Jason is going to be joining us at D&D in a Castle this summer in the USA. There's a little QR code in the corner of the screen that you can scan to find that event specifically, which, by the way, is basically sold out. There is pretty much one ticket left. So if you were thinking of going to that event,
for the whole event, or just for my is my table filled now? Oh, wow.
The whole event. There's like we haven't assigned everybody to their tables yet, the people who have chosen not to pick a table. So they could be at your table or so, but there's basically one ticket left for the event. So if you want to come to that particular round, act fast if you want to be at Jason's table, because this is your last chance. There are other D&D and Castle events, however, but you won't be able to play with Jason at them. But there are other great DMs there too. So we always will give you a good game at D&D and a Castle. I'm going to invite you, Jason, to take us out with a direct invite to the audience to come and enjoy your campaign and spend a week with you at D&D and a Castle this summer.
Come join us in the woods of Ohio at an elven castle in the realm somewhere near Cincinnati, I think. For D&D in a Castle, for fun, mirth, mayhem, music, and more.
Amazing. Thank you. And we'll see you at the castle. Thanks for joining us.